The warrior who laughed at Monster Shara was not a normal girl. She was a trained warrior from the planet Keltha. Her people were born for battle. From a young age, she was taught to fight, survive, and never show fear. Shara had fought space. Monsters with teeth longer than her arms. She had crushed metal beasts with her bare hands. She had flown through fire, faced death, and smiled in its face. Her name was written in war songs across the galaxy. Many feared her. Some called her the Laughing Blade because she used to smile in the middle of deadly fights. She enjoyed war. She enjoyed danger. And most of all, she enjoyed proving she was stronger than anyone else. But now, she was not flying into war. She was sent to Earth. The mission was simple: observe humans, learn their behavior, and return. It was a peaceful task. No guns, no battles, just study and report. Shara wasn't excited, but she followed orders. That's what warriors do. Her ship landed silently in a remote area outside a human town. She wore a translator patch on her neck, and her body adjusted to the gravity within minutes. She walked like a human, spoke like a human, but inside, she was still the same warrior. A human named Daniel was assigned to help her. He was chosen because he lived alone, had a quiet life, and agreed to let a foreign exchange guest live with him for a week. He had no idea that guest would be an alien fighter from the stars. When Shara first stepped into his house, she scanned everything. Her eyes studied the furniture, the lights, the temperature. Nothing dangerous. Just soft chairs, wood floors, and a strong smell of cooked food. Daniel welcomed her with a smile. "Make yourself at home," he said. "I will study this place." Shara replied flatly. "And your people," he chuckled. "Sure, but you'll need to use the bathroom, the kitchen, and your room." "Want me to show you around?" She nodded. "Yes, lead." Daniel walked ahead and pointed to each room. "This is the kitchen. Food, dishes, you know." She nodded. "This is your room. Clean bed, warm blanket." She nodded again. "And this," he said, pointing to a small door, "is the bathroom." Shara tilted her head. "What is bath, room?" He smiled. "Where you wash yourself, take a shower, use the toilet." She frowned slightly but said nothing. She entered the bathroom alone. The door clicked shut behind her. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Shara turned slowly and looked around. The bathroom had white tiles. A mirror hung on the wall. A sink with 2 handles. A toilet. And a long tub with a curtain. It seemed normal. But then, something strange happened. Her stomach tightened. Her chest felt heavy. Her hands shook. Shara blinked. "Why?" She took a step toward the tub, her eyes fixed on the curtain. It was just a curtain. Just a normal curtain. She reached for it and pulled it aside. A rush of cold air hit her face. Suddenly, her legs gave out. She fell to the floor, back against the wall. Her breathing became sharp. Her vision blurred. Then tears. Shara didn't cry. Warriors didn't cry. But now, the strongest warrior of Keltha was shaking and crying on a bathroom floor. Why? It wasn't fear of the bathroom itself. It was what the bathroom reminded her of, a memory, long ago. One she had locked away. There was a room like this on her home planet, a place of pain, a white room, cold floor, metal walls. She was a child, a test subject. Before she became a warrior, she was a number in a lab. She had cried back then, too. But after that, she had promised never to cry again. Until now. A soft knock came from the door. "You okay in there?" Daniel's voice was gentle. Ira wiped her face quickly. "Yes," she said, trying to sound strong. "Just learning your devices." "All right," he replied. "Take your time." She stood slowly. Her legs were weak. Her face was hot. She looked in the mirror. The girl in the glass wasn't the fearless warrior anymore. She looked broken. Shara opened the door and stepped out. Daniel looked at her face, noticed her red eyes, but didn't say anything. He just smiled kindly. "If you're hungry, I made soup." Jera nodded. "Thank you." She sat at the table silently, holding the warm bowl with both hands. Her fingers were still shaking. Not from fear of monsters, but from a quiet room with white tiles that no one else would understand. But deep inside, Jera now knew that Earth had something far more powerful than any alien weapon. Memories. And they could break even the strongest. Warrior, Jera stood outside the human's small house the next morning, watching the sky turn orange. Earth's sun was soft. Not like the twin suns of Keltha that burned her skin during training. This world felt gentler, but that made her nervous. She didn't trust gentle things. Back on her ship, her mission was clear. Blend in, learn about humans, report everything. Back to the Kelthan High Council. They believed Earth might be a future threat or a secret ally. That's why they sent her. Because no one could scare her. Not even the humans, but now she wasn't so sure. She had cried last night in that strange bathroom. Something inside her had broken. Something she thought was gone forever. A memory of her past, triggered by a quiet room. Jera didn't sleep after that. Instead, she studied the data files from Earth. She searched for anything about bathroom trauma. There were thousands of results, too many. Humans were fragile in ways she didn't understand. They felt too much, spoke too fast, hid pain behind laughter. It was confusing. Daniel came outside with 2 cups. Steam rose from both. "Morning," he said, holding one cup toward her. "Hot cocoa, you should try it." Jera took the cup. It smelled sweet, unlike the bitter survival drinks of her world. She sipped it carefully. Her eyes widened. "This is strange," she said, "but not bad." Daniel grinned. High praise from a serious alien warrior. Jera raised an eyebrow. "How do you know I'm a warrior?" He shrugged. "Your stance, your eyes. The way you look around like you're ready to attack furniture." Jera didn't smile, but something in her chest felt lighter. "Today," she said, "I must begin my official study. I need to understand how humans live. Where do you keep your battles?" Daniel laughed out loud. "Our battles? We don't really have battles here. Unless you count traffic jams or social media arguments." She frowned. "That is not helpful." He looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. I'll show you human life Earth style. Grocery stores, streets, public transport, coffee shops." "Grocery?" she asked. "Food markets. Where we hunt with credit cards." She didn't understand the joke, but followed him anyway. As they walked through the small town, people looked at her. Jera wore simple Earth clothes now, jeans and a jacket. But her skin was faintly silver under the sunlight, and her eyes were too sharp. A few kids pointed and whispered. One old woman said, "She's beautiful, but strange." Daniel stayed close, explaining everything. "That's a bakery. They make bread. And that's a barber. Cuts hair." Jera stared at the tools in the barber's window. "Torture instruments." "No," Daniel said, laughing. "Style instruments." At the grocery store, Jera walked through aisles slowly. So many smells, so many colors. She picked up a fruit, round, red, shiny. "What is this?" "An apple," Daniel said. "It looks fake." Some say the same about influencers. She rolled her eyes. When they reached the frozen section, Jera stopped. Cold air hit her face. Her body went still. "Something wrong?" Daniel asked. She stared at the freezer door. Frost on glass. A metal handle. It reminded her of another cold place. Another time. "No," she said after a moment. "Just observing." Daniel didn't push. He watched her from the corner of his eye, understanding a little more now. Jera wasn't afraid of monsters. She was afraid of memories. On the way back home, they passed a small schoolyard. Children were laughing, playing. One girl fell, and scraped her knee. She started to cry. Jera froze again. That sound, she whispered. The cry of a child. Yeah, Daniel said. It happens. She'll be okay. Jera didn't move. Her eyes locked onto the child. Then suddenly, without warning, she walked forward. She knelt beside the girl. Pain? Jera asked. Little girl sniffled. Yes. Jera gently took her hand and placed it on her own chest. Here. My pain is bigger. Take mine. Give yours to me. The child blinked. Then smiled, confused but calmer. Daniel walked over. What was that? A Kelthan comfort phrase, Jera said softly. We say it to young warriors when they fall. You were one of them once? She didn't answer, back at the house. Jera went into her room and closed the door. She touched her neck where the translator patch rested. Then she looked at her hand, the one that held the child's dot. It shook again. She wasn't used to this. Not just earth. Not just bathrooms or cold glass or crying children. She wasn't used to kindness back in Keltha. Kindness was weakness. But here, on Earth, it might be the only thing strong enough to break her armor. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't a bad thing. Jera stood outside the bathroom door again. This time, her hand hovered in the air, just inches from the handle. It wasn't a battlefield. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a weapon, but still. She hesitated. Daniel had gone out for groceries. The house was quiet. No footsteps, no voices. Just her and the door she had avoided since her arrival. Yesterday, she had cried inside that room. A warrior who had never shed a tear in battle broke down at the sight of a tub. And even now she didn't understand why it hit her so hard. Jera took a breath and turned the handle. The door creaked open. Same white tiles. Same mirror. Same curtain covering the tub. Same cold silence. Her boots echoed softly as she stepped inside. She scanned everything again, like a soldier inspecting enemy territory. Her fingers brushed over the towel rack. The metal was warm. From sunlight, but she shivered anyway. She walked over to the sink and stared at the mirror. Her reflection stared back, calm on the outside, but her eyes told the truth. She was scared, not of pain, not of death, but of remembering. Jera had fought beasts with 10 legs. She had flown ship through burning meteor storms. But memory? Memory was something you couldn't shoot or outrun. She looked at the curtain again. Yesterday. When she pulled it back, something old inside her had come awake. A vision flickering but sharp, a cold tub, metallic walls. Screaming. A child's voice, her own voice, crying for someone who never came. She wasn't ready to see that again, but part of her needed to. Slowly, her hand reached for the curtain. Once more, she didn't pull it all the way this time. Just a few inches. Just enough to see the white surface of the tub. It was clean. Empty. Normal. But her legs still felt weak. Jera backed away and sat on the closed toilet lid. She kept her eyes low, refusing to look at the mirror again. I am a warrior, she whispered to herself. But even that didn't sound strong anymore. Then her eyes caught something strange. A small plastic box near the sink, clear top. Pink. Lid. Inside were cotton swabs and bandages. She opened it. The scent of clean medicine filled her nose. Her heart thudded harder. She picked up a tiny bandage. It was the same type used back in the labs. On Celtic A. Suddenly without warning her. Mind was pulled into the past. She was 6 years old. The room was white and cold. Her small body was strapped to a metal table. She wasn't a soldier yet. She was just a child. One of many test subjects. A Kelthan scientist loomed over her, holding sharp tools. This one doesn't cry, he said. We must fix that. But she did cry. She cried when they dipped her in cold water and told her it was training. She cried when they shaved her head and wrote a number on her skin. She cried until her throat burned. And then one day she stopped. Crying. That was the day the warrior was born. Jera dropped the bandage. It hit the floor with a soft sound, but to her, it sounded like an explosion. She stood up quickly, breathing hard. "I shouldn't be here," she said. She opened the bathroom. Doran stepped out fast, bumping into something solid. Daniel. He had just returned. A paper bag in his arms, filled with fruit and snacks. "Hey Dashwo, are you okay?" he asked. Jera backed away, her eyes wild for a second, like a trapped animal. Then she calmed herself. "I needed to observe the room again." Daniel nodded. Slowly. "Did it trigger something?" Jera didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, "When I was a child, there was a room like that. On my world, it was not for cleaning, it was for testing. For pain, I was small, weak. They wanted to make me strong." Daniel listened. He didn't speak, didn't interrupt. She added, "It worked, but I lost something. I lost what it meant to be gentle." Daniel set the bag down and sat on the floor. "You don't have to explain everything," he said. "But I want you to know something. On Earth, a bathroom is not a place of fear. It's just a place to care for yourself." Jera looked away. "On my world, caring for the self is selfish." "Well," Daniel said softly, "then your world lied to you." She blinked. No one had ever said that to her before. She didn't respond, but she sat down beside him. Two warriors, one from Earth, one from the stars, sitting on the hallway floor in silence. For the first time since she arrived, Jera didn't feel like a weapon. She felt human, and that was more terrifying than any space monster she had ever faced. Asterisk. Daniel noticed her before she said a word. Jera sat at the kitchen table with a spoon in her hand, but the soup in front of her was cold. She hadn't touched it. Her silver eyes were staring at nothing, as if looking through the walls. Her strong back was straight, but her shoulders looked heavier today. He didn't ask right away. He just sat down across from her with a warm cup of tea and waited. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like a storm waiting to fall. Ira finally spoke. "Your people make quiet places." "Too quiet." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "In Keltha, even our sleep rooms have humming walls, movement, guards speaking in code. Sound is safety. Here, your silence, it makes old memories loud." Daniel understood enough. He took a sip of tea and said, "Memories. You don't want to hear again?" Jera nodded slightly. "I spent years removing them, burning them. But here, they come back like ghosts." He leaned forward. "You know, Earth has ghosts too. But not the kind that float around with white sheets. Ours live inside." Her eyes flicked toward him. "You speak like a warrior." Daniel smiled. "Sadly, no. I just lost someone once. I know what it feels like to try and walk forward while something keeps pulling you back." Jera looked down at her soup. "What did you lose?" "My sister," he said. "Car crash. I was supposed to pick her up that day. I was late. I still hear the sound of her voice in the last call." Jera didn't blink, didn't look away. "That guilt," she said softly. "It eats your chest when you're alone." Daniel nodded. "Every day." She understood that. Ira stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the wind played with the trees. Children laughed down the street. "I was not born a warrior," she said. "I was made." Daniel listened quietly. "I was taken at 5 cycles. Put into a place with white walls and cold baths. They told us crying was weakness, so I stopped. They trained me until my hands bled. I passed every trial, fought every test subject. I rose to become a commander, but I left something behind in that room." She turned back to face him. "When I entered your bathroom, I didn't see tiles. I saw that tub, the cold metal, the straps, the fear." Daniel felt a tightness in his throat. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" He asked gently. because warriors do not speak of fear. Well, maybe it's time someone did. Jera tilted her head. Do your people always talk this much about feelings? Daniel chuckled. We try. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it just makes things more confusing. Jera walked over and sat down again. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Maybe you don't have to do anything, he replied. Maybe you just need to stop fighting yourself. Jera frowned. On my world, that would mean defeat. On Earth, Daniel said, it means healing. She looked at him with tired eyes. How do you heal a broken memory? You make a new one, he said. She didn't answer. Not yet. Daniel stood up and walked to a drawer. He pulled something out and placed it on the table. A small sketchbook. Jera picked it up slowly. What is this? My sister's, Daniel said. She used to draw things when she felt too much, not to show anyone. Just for herself. Jera flipped the first page. There was a rough drawing of a girl and a cat. The next page showed a sunset. The next, a storm cloud with rain falling only on one person's head. She captured her feelings, Jera whispered. Daniel nodded. Yeah, maybe you could try it too. She held the book like it was made of fire. I don't know how to draw. Good, Daniel said. Means no one will expect perfection. That made her lips twitch. Almost a smile. That night, after Daniel went to sleep, Jera sat at the kitchen table with the sketchbook and a pencil. She stared at the blank page. Then, slowly, she began to draw. Her hand was unsure, awkward. But lines formed, shapes. She didn't draw monsters. She drew a tub, the bathroom. A pair of shaking hands reaching toward a curtain. But then, on the next page, she drew something different. A hand Daniel's reaching down to help her up. She stared at it for a long time. Then, she whispered, maybe Earth is not so weak after all. Jera stood in the middle of Daniel's living room, her hands behind her back, her posture straight as a soldier. But her eyes weren't cold anymore. They were quiet, tired. She stared at the painting on the wall, a simple thing, just a beach. And a boat, but it reminded her of something long buried. Daniel entered from the kitchen, drying his hands on a towel. You've been staring at that wall for 20 minutes. Jera didn't turn around. There's something I never told you, she said. Something I never told anyone. Daniel sat down on the couch. He didn't speak. He knew she would continue when she was ready. In the training facility, Jera began, her voice steady but low. We weren't called by names. We had numbers. Mine was 872. Daniel listened closely. 872 was a failure, she said. Too small. Too quiet. I didn't speak for days. So the scientists thought I was defective. Her fingers curled behind her back. They put me in the white room. Said if I didn't cry, they'd throw me into the waste chamber. Daniel's chest tightened. He could picture it too easily. Her, a little girl, surrounded by machines and cold voices. They filled the tub with freezing water, she continued. Held me under, again and again, until I broke. I screamed. I cried. They smiled. She finally turned to face him. That's why I cried in your bathroom. It wasn't just a room. It was that room. The same smell. The same light. Even the tiles. It brought it all back. Daniel stood, his face soft with understanding. Jera, that's not just memory. That's trauma, she frowned. On Keltha, we don't use that word. We call it cleansing the weak. Well, Daniel said, that's a lie. Your people told you to hide the cruelty they did to children. Jera blinked slowly, like his words were trying to settle inside her. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would die. Some things don't die, Daniel said. They just wait. Until you're strong enough to face them. Jera walked over to the window. Outside, a group of teenagers rode past on bikes, shouting and laughing. She stared at them like they were strange creatures. They don't know fear, she said. They do, Daniel replied. They just carry it differently. That's what being human is. We all carry something. We just pretend we don't. Jera sat beside him, and for a while the room was quiet. Then she said, "There was another child, in the white room. Number 873. She was younger than me, always sick, always cold. She held my hand one night. So she was scared." Daniel leaned forward. "What happened to her?" Jera stared at the floor. "They took her away the next morning. I never saw her again. They said weak ones are not needed." Her voice cracked at the end. "I didn't cry then, but I wanted to. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hold her again." Daniel placed a hand gently on hers. "You're not in that room anymore." "I know," she said. "But a part of me still is." He squeezed her fingers. "Then, let's go back there, together, in your memory. And let's take that part of you out of that place." She looked at him, truly looked. Her warrior face dropped. All that remained was the girl who never got to mourn. "Daniel," she said slowly, "you're not like the others." "I hope not," he said with a smile. "Because you deserve something better than orders and silence." She closed her eyes. "There's a story they tell on Keltha," she said, "of a warrior who loses their heart in war. But when the heart returns, the warrior forgets how to hold it." Daniel waited. "I think I found mine again," she whispered. "But I don't know what to do with it." He stood, went to the kitchen, and returned with a soft blanket. He placed it around her shoulders. "You let it rest," he said. "You don't rush it. You don't fight it. You just let it feel warm again." Jera held the edges of the blanket tightly. And for the first time since arriving on Earth, she didn't feel like a soldier. She felt like a person. Jera stood in front of the bathroom door again. But this time, she wasn't trembling. This time, she wasn't trying to be a warrior. She was trying to be something harder. Hold inside her chest, her heart beat slow and steady. She wasn't wearing her alien armor. She wasn't gripping her plasma whip. She wore only a soft shirt Daniel gave her, and a blanket still clung to her shoulders like a memory of safety. The house was silent. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the air. Daniel was in the garden, giving her space. He had said nothing that morning except, "I believe in you." She didn't know what belief meant exactly, but she held onto it now like a weapon. Jera turned the handle and stepped into the room. The air inside was cool. Tiles clean, mirror clear, curtains still drawn across the tub. Nothing had changed in the bathroom, but something had changed in her. She walked slowly to the sink. Her reflection in the mirror stared back, silver-skinned, strong eyes, soft lips pressed together. She didn't look like a scared girl anymore. She looked like someone trying. Jera reached for the curtain. Her hand paused again, but this time she didn't stop. She pulled it back completely. The tub was empty. She stepped closer, ran her fingers along the smooth surface. It was cold, but no longer terrifying. She sat on the edge. Then slowly, carefully, she stepped into the tub. Not to bathe, not to clean, just to sit. Her back rested against the wall. Her arms wrapped around her knees. The same position she had once used in that terrible lab long ago. But this time, there were no machines. No straps, no cold voices. Just silence. At first, it felt like falling back into the past. She saw flashes her younger self, screaming, choking, shivering. But then she heard something else. Footsteps. Soft. Real. Daniel. She didn't turn. She didn't hide. The bathroom door opened gently. He stood there, watching her sit in the tub fully clothed. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't mean to come in." It's okay," Jera whispered. "I want you here." Daniel stepped closer but didn't enter the room. "I didn't come to fix anything," he said. "I just wanted to be near you in case." The memories tried again. Jera let out a long, shaky breath. They tried. But I told them something today. He waited. I told them I'm not that child anymore. And I'm not afraid of remembering. Her, Daniel nodded, his eyes soft. Good. She deserves to be remembered. Jera's eyes filled with tears, but this time, she didn't fight them. She cried, quietly, gently. Her hands didn't shake out, her body didn't collapse. The tears rolled down her cheeks like rain watering dry earth. And when she looked up, Daniel was still there, not moving, not judging, only staying. When the tears slowed, she finally spoke. Back then, I thought no one would ever come for me. I thought if I cried, I would be alone forever. She reached out and touched the bathroom wall, as if blessing it now with her truth. But I'm not alone now. Daniel walked in then, took a small towel from the rack, and knelt beside the tub. He handed it to her without a word. Jera wiped her face slowly. I thought strength was silence, she said. And now? He asked. She looked at him with soft, tired eyes. Now I think strength is being able to cry and still stand up after. He offered his hand. Jera stared at it. This time, she didn't hesitate. She took it. He helped her out of the tub and they stood there face to face. Not as a human and an alien, not as a host and a guest, but as two people who had lived through their own private wars. Jera said, I don't know if I'll ever be normal. Daniel smiled. Good. Normal's boring. She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Then he added, but you're healing, and that's better than normal. Jera nodded. Then let me keep healing, one step at a time. She looked around the bathroom one last time. This place that once broke her had become a place where she began to rebuild. Not all wounds could be seen, but all wounds could heal, if someone cared enough to sit beside you while you faced them. The morning sun poured through the window, painting soft gold light across the wooden floor. Birds chirped outside. Wind moved gently through the trees. It was peaceful. Almost too peaceful for someone like Jera. But today, she didn't mind the peace. She sat at the small kitchen table, a warm cup between her hands, not for defense or observation, but for comfort. Across from her, Daniel was eating toast, simple, calm, human. Jera had been on Earth for 6 days. In that time, she hadn't fought a single beast, fired a single weapon, or faced any battlefield. Yet somehow, this mission had become the hardest of her life. Do you know what's strange? She said, stirring the drink with a small spoon. Looked up. What? I used to think Earth was weak, too soft, too slow. But now I understand, it's not weak, it's quiet. Because your strength doesn't come from fear. He smiled. It comes from healing, she nodded. And that is much harder. Daniel leaned back in his chair. So what happens when you go back? What will you tell your people? Jera's eyes shifted toward the window, to the garden outside. She had planted one small flower there yesterday, a purple one, bright against the soil. She didn't know its name, only that it was hers now. I'll tell them Earth is dangerous, she said. Daniel raised his eyebrows. She smirked. Dangerous because it has something they can't understand. A different kind of power. Daniel grinned. You mean plumbing? Jera laughed a real laugh, light and quick. It surprised even her. No, she said. Kindness. They sat quietly for a moment. Then Jera stood, walking over to a shelf where her sketchbook lay. She opened it and flipped through pages she had filled over the last few days. They weren't perfect drawings. Some were jagged. Some were childlike. But they were real. A picture of the tub, the bandage, the memory of the child, and then Daniel's hand, the flower. A small drawing of herself smiling. She had drawn her healing. I want to leave this here, she said. Daniel looked confused. The sketchbook? She nodded. Let it live here. I don't want to take the pain with me. Let it stay where it changed. Daniel stood and walked over to her. I'll keep it safe, he said. She handed it to him like it was made of glass. "I was taught to carry pain in silence," she whispered. "But now I know. It's okay to share it. You don't have to be a weapon anymore, Jera." She looked at him and said softly, "Maybe I never was one. Maybe I was just a girl who needed someone to listen." Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then I'm glad you found someone." Jera turned toward the door. Her communicator blinked softly on her wrist. Her ship had returned. The mission was over, but something inside her wanted to stay. She took one step toward the exit, then paused. "There's one more thing I want to do before I go," she said. An hour later, they stood in the town's public bathhouse. It was clean, quiet, filled with gentle lights and the smell of lavender soap. Jera stood at the edge of a wide modern tub, similar to the one in Daniel's home, but different. This place had no ghosts, only steam and calm. "I need to rewrite the memory," she said, "in my mind." Daniel understood. She stepped into the warm water slowly. This time, she didn't flinch, didn't cry. She sat back in the tub, the water wrapping around her body like a soft hug. Daniel sat nearby, just outside the room, waiting quietly. Jera closed her eyes. She let herself feel the heat, the calm, the peace. The white tiles were no longer cold and cruel. They were safe. She whispered something in her own language. A prayer, not to a god but to the little girl who once trembled in ice. "You survived," she said softly. "Now rest." And in that moment, Jera let her past go, not erased, but softened. Not forgotten, but forgiven. Later that evening, Daniel walked her to the field where her ship waited. The wind moved through the grass. The sky above glowed orange and blue. Jera looked different now. Her face still carried strength, but also softness. Her eyes still saw everything, but not with suspicion anymore. "I'll send a report," she said. "But not just data. I'll include a message." "What kind?" Daniel asked. "That Earth is not just a world of humans. It is a world of healing, and it should be protected, not feared." Daniel smiled, then held out a small object. A folded paper flower. Zachary took it carefully. "A gift," he said. She looked at it with wide eyes. "Do your people give paper when they say goodbye?" "No," he said. "We give it when we hope it's not goodbye." She nodded slowly. Then turned and walked into her ship, not as 8-7-2. But as Jera warrior, survivor, and healer. And somewhere inside, a broken part of her whispered back, "Thank you."